Gameweek 6 is a popular week to wildcard in FPL, with many managers finally losing patience with underperforming players and the fear of going without Haaland reaching critical levels. However, whenever we have a mass overhaul of our squads, the danger levels increase, especially early in the season when everything is still so volatile. And for those like myself not on a wildcard, we have to decide the best course of action to counter the most powerful chip in the game, and it isn't always easy to do so. So whichever path you are walking this season, today I have the drafts and the transfers to maximise your chances of success. Because the best way to remove fear of your opponents is to have a master plan, and today we are going to formulate yours together. And what is particularly funny to me is how the patterns of last season are echoed this year. 1 year ago, those big name content creators, they all worked themselves into a frenzy in the exact same game week, and one by one they all activated their wildcard chip, whether they needed to or not. It was perhaps the single biggest example of groupthink in action all season, but it was nothing for the rest of us to fear, because it was the first glorious opportunity to steal the honey from the hive mind, one which set me on my path to the top 10k, although I did end up falling away in the closing weeks as I prioritised securing the coveted League of Gentlemen Championship. And while the same could be true this season, it's one of those that really could go either way. The two keys to success, whichever path you walk, is having a plan and then having the cojones to execute that plan. And with so many divergent strategies this season, offering concise, actionable advice to everyone is difficult to do. So before we get to the wildcard draft if you're playing the chip, and the best transfers if you're not, we need to cover some catch-all strategy for the next 14 game weeks, after which of course all our chips are replenished. So the first tip I have this week is, whether you are on a wildcard or not, it's time to start transferring money out of your substitutes and into the starting 11. Now I know a lot of you already have that bargain basement bench, and if you do, then that is grand. You have the advantage of not needing to do anything. But for those like myself who favour the rotation policy early doors, we have to look for opportunities to decrease the money we have going to waste. We now know which cheap players are going to tick along and pick up points, ready to step in when needed. There's no point having an Elliot Anderson on the bench when we could have a Josh King, Anton Stack or Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. There's no point our fifth defender being 4.5 million when we could have Mukiele, Goodmanson, Rodon or Ekdal. Instead of Strand Larson or Evan Nilsson as rotation attackers, we could have Wilson Isidore, Lyle Foster, Rodrigo Muniz or Dominic Calvert-Lewin, all of which gives us more money in the first team, whilst maintaining the quality of the bench in case of emergency. Now getting to them on a wildcard is easy. If you're not on a wildcard, it's a little bit trickier, but if I bring up my own team for example, you can see it's not impossible. I've got Harvey Barnes on my bench and that is not ideal. I don't want him long term, hell I don't even want him this week. He had potential, but he has proven a bad pick. Now if I take him down to stack, then next week instead of Chris Wood against Newcastle, I have the money for Victor Gyökeres against West Ham. Or I could remove Cucurella for Mukiele, start Livramento and have the funds to do Barnes to Saka. Then the week after, I could use my 2 free transfers to do Cunha to Stack and Wood to Gyökeres, with more than enough left over to upgrade Porro to Gabriel if I wanted. There are lots lots of options. If you have Salah and you want Haaland, it's so easy to get a cheap, consistent midfielder and use that spare money to upgrade elsewhere next week. We know which budget players are nailed, and sometimes availability really is the best ability. If you're on a wildcard, 3 of those players alongside Dubravka is all you need on the bench. My second tip is to be conscious of rotation, but do not fear it. I spoke very strongly in pre-season about the need for a strong bench and how 9 English clubs being in Europe would have a major impact on rotation this season, and I still believe that. If you are torn between 2 players and one plays in Europe and the other does not, it makes sense to go with the player with a lower probability of being benched, especially if the one in Europe has a history of fitness issues. If you really can't decide between, say, Joao Pedro and Jared Bowen, or Mohamed Kudus and Ilian Ndiaye, then selecting the player with no European football is the sensible thing to do. However, you should absolutely not decline the signing of a player just because he might miss the odd game. For one, in the majority of cases, the players playing in Europe are the better players, playing for the better teams, and so are more likely to secure more points. The reason teams have European football is because their attackers score more goals and their defenders keep more out. And the other thing is, if you have been sensible and you have 3 solid, consistent, cheap subs who can step in, then that should cover any absences anyway. So if you are torn between Joao Pedro and Jared Bowen and you think it's too close to call, then yes, pick Jared Bowen. But if you think Joao Pedro scores 40 points over the next 7 game weeks but Bowen only scores 20, then ignoring Pedro because you might get 0 in one of those game weeks is just a little bit silly. Just make sure your squad is balanced and you have some players without Europe in there too. People like Antoine Semenyo and Bruno Fernandes, and European rotation won't affect you as much as you might worry. If you really want to minimise the risk, then pick 5 Defcon Daddy centre backs. They rarely get rotated at all, and then you'll have 3 budget attackers on your bench ready to step in case of emergency. Of course you should be aware of rotation, but it is a mistake to ignore great assets for 7 game weeks just because they may miss one. All you have to do is balance the risk, and with players like Semenyo, Fernandes and those Defcon daddies, it is much easier to take a few gambles. And the reason I'm talking about 7 game weeks is because game week 13 has a nice fixture swing for some big teams. And that leads us into our third tip, which is to decide on your trip strategy now. Now, if you have your wildcard active, you've already made one of those calls, and if you've used any other trips, then they are gone too. So pinpointing when to use your remaining powerful weapons isn't too hard to do. And in this season of divergent strategies, advice regarding the trips is the easiest of all, so I'll keep it brief so we can get to what you all really want to know, which is who I think you should buy. If you have all your trips remaining, the best combination strategy is Wildcard 13, Bench Boost 15, Free Hit 17. This enables you to pick the best Liverpool, Man City, Man United and Newcastle players for their dream fixture runs from Game Week 13, augmented by the best players elsewhere, maximising the quality for your bench boost in Game Week 15, knowing you get 5 free transfers in Game Week 16 to tidy it up if you desire, whilst being able to free hit in Game Week 17 when 3 of those 4 teams have awkward games whilst other enticing players have great fixtures. That is a strategy I devised in pre-season and I still think it's the best. Now, if your wildcard is active this week, then stock that bench with Burnley, Leeds and Sunderland budget assets and bench boost in Game Week 8. This keeps the money in the first team while maximising the fixture potential for those substitute enablers. You will need your transfers to maximise your first team for that Game Week 13 fixture swing, so simplify your squad development by focusing entirely on the first 11. If you still have your free hit, then Game Week 17 is still great, and it's a nice fallback option in the event of a crisis in another game week. Triple captain is easy, unless he is ruled out, then play it on Haaland this week, and if you don't fancy that, then play it by ear and go when you feel an opportunity is there. You have until Game Week 19 to use it, and in Game Week 19, Man City play Sunderland, Liverpool play Leeds, Man United are against Wolves and Newcastle travel to Burnley. If you still have your triple captain in Game Week 19, you will have so many options to choose from, so either play it this week or know you have great opportunities most game weeks right up until the last one, and don't worry about it. Triple captain is not a problem at all. And finally, if you are considering a wildcard this week and you haven't activated the chip, then do not bother. There are better fixture swings to come, like I keep saying in Game Week 13. If you want Haaland so bad and your only route is selling Salah for a hit to get him, then do it and play the triple captain. Saving the wildcard is worth a 4-point hit. If I could, I would pay 12 points right now to buy another wildcard, so don't throw yours away for the sake of 4 or even 8 points. Right, I hear you. Come on, Nightmare, stop blabbering about strategy, just give us the players. Tell us who the absolute can't miss must-have FPL game breakers are so we can get on with our lives. Right, well, we will start with the top tips for those not on a wildcard first, and then we'll get to you wasteful wildcarders afterwards. So the top target for this week is the Norse Force, Erling Haaland. You don't need me to tell you that. If he's fit, then you need to be selling your granny to get him in your team. His attacking data and output is so far beyond any other option that you simply have to have him. You have to pick your battles in this game, and going without Haaland this week is a bad move. The risk is just too great. Now, if you're selling Salah to get Haaland, then if you don't have him, you may as well get Semenyo in. Again, it's just not worth the risk of going without him. He's got goals, assists, penalties, he's now added DEFCON points, his price is rising by the minute, he's in imperious form, and his fixtures are fantastic. Don't overthink it. I brought Semenyo in last week and I was trying to talk myself out of it, and then I just gave in and got him, and I'll be honest with you, like I always am, even though he was playing my beloved Newcastle, I felt relief to see him in my squad. For the sake of your sanity, just get Semenyo. Beyond that, I will give you one tip for each position. If you want a goalkeeper, get Nick Pope. Newcastle have kept 6 clean sheets in the last 8 games against Arsenal, including 4 in 4 at St James's Park. In 5 league games, have conceded only 1 goal with 11 men on the pitch. The defensive stats are phenomenal, and while the new look attack finds its feet, Eddie Howe will maintain a very solid backline. Nick Pope is the only member of that backline with little rotation risk, so he is the best entry point into that team. If you want a defender, then get Marco Senesi. He's cheap, he's got DEFCONs in every game, he averaged 1 attacking return every 3 games the season before last, and he has a great fixture run ahead of him. 86% of managers don't own the most obvious defensive signing of the season. Get on him. Now, if you do want a lesser heralded suggestion, then get Josko Gvardiol. He's the best defender in the team who have just signed the best goalkeeper in the world, and he has great attacking threat. He has Burnley as the entry point, and though he has a couple of tougher games in a few weeks, he's just got the DEFCONs against Arsenal, so there is points potential there too if City do go defensive again. Gvardiol will not be as cheap as 5.8 million million for very long, so get him while he is. If you need a midfielder who isn't Semenyo, then consider Brian Mbeumo. He's played Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea in his opening 5 games, yet he still has an expected goal involvement of 0.66 per 90 minutes. That is excellent. As a team, Man United have put up some remarkably good attacking numbers in the opening weeks. The secret in this game is signing players before the bang, and Mbeumo's return to the G-Tech could well see him explode. If you want a striker, then it's obviously Haaland. As for the rest, I'd honestly wait a week because I don't really rate any of them as signings this week. But if you do fancy a short-term punt, then Richarlison has Wolves and Leeds in his next 2 games, and that's about as good as it gets. Just know you'll probably want to sell him after that, so I personally would avoid him and save the transfer. So the big question is who to pick on a wildcard, and I do have a draft for you, but let me first say you do not need it. You do not need to be mollycoddled. You need to be empowered. I want you to believe in yourself, to trust your own judgment. This whole video has been about trying to help you understand the best ways to make your own decisions. So while I will give you a draft, what I want you to do is find everything you dislike about it, then change it. I want you to tell me everything wrong with my draft and pick your own preferences. That's what this game is about. Take a chance on the striker you like. Have the courage to go with an alternative formation. They'll all tell you to get Gyökeres, as will I, but don't let them put you off Eberechi Eze. Use my draft and any other ones you see, not as solutions, but as frameworks, as starting points. Make your team your own, because whether you end up with more points or fewer, you will enjoy the game more, and that ultimately is what FPL is all about. So onto the draft, and the first thing you'll see is there is no more Salah, and this is for 2 reasons. 1, you just can't justify nearly £29 million of your budget on 2 players, and 2, because Mo Salah just hasn't been very good for a long time now. Ever since the aura killer Tino Livramento stole his soul in the cup final. Or the cynical may suggest since Salah secured that new mega money contract. His underlying data is terrible. His influence on games is peripheral. Look, he could well come good, and you may want him back. But you know who is more likely to come good from Liverpool? Alexander Isak, and he is £4 million cheaper. If you take out that penalty, Salah's data and performances have been abysmal for a player of his calibre. You could get what Salah offers from Iliman Ndiaye, and he is £8 million cheaper, and he's not in my draft either. Look, I get that Salah is a comfort blanket, but your mother has put the blanket in the tumble dryer and accidentally shrank it, and now it doesn't cover your feet anymore. It's time to throw away that blanket and crank up the fire, and that's what this draft gives you. Nick Pope is in phenomenal form. Newcastle have conceded 1 goal in 5 games with 11 men on the pitch, and they have tightened up so much at the back. And with players like Sven Botman, Malik Chow and Lewis Hall not even able to make the first team, they are set for a very strong defensive season. And yes, Pope has Arsenal next, but like I've already said, Newcastle have 6 clean sheets in the last 8 games against Arsenal and 4 in 4 at St James's Park. It's not an issue. Nick Pope is the cheapest and best way into potentially the best defence. In defence, Gabriel and Senesi need no explanation. Gvardiol is Man City's best and most nailed defender, carries substantial attacking threat, and he now has the best goalkeeper in the world behind him. There are a couple of tough games coming up, but he had a tough game at the weekend and he got defensive contributions from it. £5.8 million is the cheapest you'll ever pay for a defender who could well prove essential, and he has Burnley this week. Rodon and Mukiele are two very good 4 million defenders as cover. They'll do the job and save you rotation stress. And yes, you could get Alderete from Sunderland or Ekdal from Burnley if you prefer. It's up to you. The point is you don't need to spend any money on them. Up front picks itself, though, the lack of Joao Pedro is the most egregious call, and if you do want him then it's fair enough. Like I said, tweak this team to your own desire. But for me, Joao Pedro twining about having to play after the internationals is a bit of a red flag. He has always been a bit injury prone, and that manager of his is an absolute idiot. When you look at my midfield, it's very easy to switch Mbeumo or Gordon to Stack or Dewsbury Hall and get Pedro in, and maybe even strengthen the team. And to be fair, that's maybe the best play, because if Lyle Foster gets injured then there's nowhere to go. But if Stack got injured, there's Dewsbury Hall, there's Josh King, Granit Xhaka, Pape Sarr, the list goes on. You could even get Pedro in instead of Gyökeres, who I think looks crap every time I watch him. But with Arsenal's fixtures, I just think he's probably worth getting just in case. But that midfield, I really like it. Reinders is a phenomenal option and looks set to fall somewhere between Rodgers last season and Palmer the year before. Fernandes and Semenyo need no explanation. Mbeumo, look, I know you're thinking double Man United is too much, perhaps even two players too much, but like I said, they've played Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea, and they are putting up some of the best attacking numbers around, even if they haven't converted to goals just yet. Once they do, we are all going to want an extra piece of that pie, especially with no Euro. And Anthony Gordon, well, I know what you're thinking. Bloody hell, Nightmare, have you learned nothing? Didn't you absolutely slate him and say Newcastle should sell him after that red card? And yes, I did. I'm an emotional guy and it was an intense evening, and maybe, just maybe, I was a little bit harsh on the lad. And look, I know he has struggled for attacking returns recently too, but before the weekend's games, Gordon was joint second for big chances behind Haaland, and he's only played 134 minutes all season. He came back into the team and he scored against Barcelona. He has a great record against Arsenal. He may well be on penalties. And for all you can't really say someone is nailed in that Newcastle attack, Gordon is about as close as you can get. Harvey Barnes has had a run and he's done very little with it. Gordon is back now, he's hungry and he's ready to force his way into that England 11 next summer. Trust me, once he gets his customary goal against Arsenal this weekend, he'll be on all the thumbnails next week because our fixtures open right out. So yeah, that's a draft I'd go with. Strong solid defence, plenty of DEFCON points, plenty of attacking threat. 5 excellent midfielders with huge goal potential, and 2 strikers who could easily get 15 goals between them in the next 5 game weeks. A nice balance between players from teams in Europe and teams with midweeks off, and some cheap, solid subs who can secure points if called upon, enabling all the transfers to be focused on attacking the fixtures with the starting team, building towards that big fixture swing from Arsenal to Liverpool in game week 13. So take that draft, rip it apart, put the players in you prefer and improve upon it. That's what you're meant to do after watching these videos. You don't need to be told which team to pick, you just need a platform to build from, and hopefully that draft has done that. But like I keep saying, it is not a good week to wildcard, because this is the best week for that triple captainship. And to look at my team, that's exactly what I'll do, on exactly the player it should be played on. The rest, well, I have 2 free transfers and there's nothing urgent needs doing. The likeliest move I'll make is Cucurella to Gvardiol, but I may just start Livramento for our traditional clean sheet against Arsenal. I may do Cunha to Fernandes or Barnes to Gordon, but really when I look at that team, I feel there's no need to panic. It's all about hitting the Arsenal fixture swing next week, and 3 free transfers to get to Gabriel, Gyökeres and either Eze or Gordon. Gordon looks a very nice option to keep in reserve. So there you are. I don't particularly enjoy wildcard draft videos because I feel it's too much talk of telling you what to do. So instead I've tried to show you not what to think, but how to plan for yourself and believe in your own judgment. And more to the point, to encourage you to make some fun picks along the way. So if you must wildcard, then use videos like this not as instructions, but as a chance to see what the rest of the field is doing and how you can get ahead of them. It's easy to get suckered into groupthink in these game weeks, but let me tell you, there is nothing sweeter in this game than when you steal the honey from the hive mind. So be brave and beat them all at their own game. And if you really want to do something a little bit crazy, then why not give Anthony Gordon the captain's armband? Because I feel there's a redemption story brewing there, and it's not like Anthony Gordon as captain has ever gone wrong for me.